Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Today we are going to talk about Nikola Jokic taking his game to another level once again and forcing himself to be in MVP talks. Unprecedented MVP talks to where he could go on to win 4 MVPs in 5 years if he was able to successfully do it this season. De'Aaron Fox went out and scored 60 last night and 49 the next. He has been super impressive this NBA season. Over the last couple of years, his growth as a player has been amazing. And it's been a trend throughout his entire career of continually becoming better. We're going to talk about that and a lot more on today's episode of State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Thank you for forcing the NBA to have conversations about him once again. Conversations that were not being had not because of his talent, not because of his play, but because of the historical precedent behind it. Jokic is having an amazing start to this NBA season, averaging a triple-double. And as impressive as that was when Russell Westbrook did it, it might be even more impressive that Jokic is doing and racking up all these assists as a center. He is one of the best passers we've ever seen, not just for the center position, but for any position. And he has really solidified himself in recent years, the last 5 years or so, as an elite all-time big man, especially by winning a championship. You have to have those conversations about Nikola Jokic because he consistently puts on a high level of statistics. And not only does he have good numbers, great numbers even, he contributes to winning. Even that season where the Nuggets were without Jamal Murray and MPJ for almost the entire season, Jokic was able to carry them on his back and lead them to a respectable record. I believe that was his first MVP season. And he won a championship, so he proves that, you can win with Nikola Jokic being the guy facilitating your offense. And when he was looking to three-peat for MVP, the question was, do we want this guy to be in the same ranks as guys like Larry Bird, just all-time greats? There's been very few that have won 3 straight MVPs. And ultimately went to Embiid because he was another very strong candidate who didn't have any voter fatigue in terms of all-time precedent. And then, obviously, it's a regular season award, but Jokic goes out and wins a championship that same season. And as a result, it becomes more acceptable to include him in those all-time ranks of guys like Larry Bird. And you can kind of see the vision of that and become more open to him winning a 3rd MVP just as a result of him showing that his brand of basketball can win you a championship. Because an individual player can be super impressive, but they're not going to be an all-timer truly if they can't commit to winning, if they aren't able to win a championship, because that ultimately is the biggest goal in the entire NBA. And we've got all-timers who have won without rings, but generally when you're considering that major all-time great category, they have some championships behind them. So with Jokic going out and winning a championship, while he didn't win his 3rd MVP straight, it set the precedent that he can hang with the big guys and the all-timers, and he would go on next season to win that MVP, making it his 3rd officially. And this one kind of came by default. Joel Embiid was having a great start to the year and likely on track to win his 2nd MVP if he kept up his pace of play. But Embiid would ultimately get injured, and all eyes from then on were on Nikola Jokic. And the fact that he was able to win that MVP was really impressive because of the fact that the expectations were simply that. They were for him to be the most valuable player in the league, especially now that Embiid is out. Because the prior year, it felt like a lot of people had the assumption that Joel Embiid kind of robbed that MVP away from Jokic. Jokic should have gotten his 3rd straight. So now with Embiid injured the following season, all eyes were on Jokic to go out and win that 3rd MVP. So anything he did that could be perceived as negative was going to be criticized. He had a spotlight on him the entire season, and he was able to live up to it, lead Denver to a top record in the West, and win his 3rd MVP in 4 years, something we hardly ever see. And now, the idea going into this season was that the MVP might be more of a 2-man race between 2 point guards, Luka and Shea, just because Jokic has already won 3 in 4 years. Is he really going to be able to take his game to another level and win 4 and 5? But he absolutely has done that. His production this season in the 3 major box score categories of points, boards, and assists It is higher right now, and it's inflated a little bit due to the start of the season, most likely. But his statistics right now are higher than some players' career highs in just that one singular production category. Like you look at assists, the amount of assists per game he's averaging right now is higher than Chris Paul ever has. And Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards of all time. Nikola Jokic has become undeniable. Every time you set a limit, every time you have a restriction saying, oh, he can't do this, so to deny him out of winning an MVP, out of being in all-time discussions, he goes out and becomes an even better player somehow. Nikola Jokic is doing it again. He could well be on his way to winning his fourth MVP in 5 years. And it might be a close race. Anthony Davis looks really good. I expect Luka and Shea to be a little bit better and be in conversations more around season end. Jason Tatum looks pretty good. But at the end of the day, even having these discussions for Jokic to still be a front runner after all this voter fatigue, it's crazy. And just with his play on the court and all that he does and the way he contributes to winning, the way that his style of play, you can really see how it affects the game. And it's not just empty stats whatsoever. He's doing everything he can, night in, night out, to lead the Nuggets to victory, to give them any chance. Nikola Jokic has become undeniable. Nikola Jokic has turned around against every obstacle that has been put forth and made it past it. And Nikola Jokic is doing it all over again, really putting himself in the conversation for all-time great bigs. To even be in discussions of winning your fourth MVP in 5 years, in the last 30 hours, De'Aaron Fox has scored a total of 109 points. That comes from a 60 bomb in a loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and most recently a 49-point game. And that 60-point game, for the record, was the Kings' highest scoring game by an individual player ever, and it was De'Aaron Fox's career high, of course. Ultimately, it came in a loss to Minnesota, but the Timberwolves are one of the best teams in the entire league, so that one's acceptable. And overall, just a great stretch for De'Aaron Fox. He's really one of the most talented point guards in the league in terms of sheer quickness and in terms of athleticism. And over time, he's honed his game, honed his craft to become a better three-point shooter than he was early on. And year by year, we have steadily seen De'Aaron Fox become a better and better NBA player. Where that was early on, every single year his production would rise, especially in points per game, or whether it's now where we're seeing what he can do on a Kings team that isn't just a bottom tier team, a team that actually has a chance at the playoffs. They were the 3 seed just the other year. And so now we're seeing what he can do on a team that actually has aspirations. And De'Aaron Fox is not failing them. He's been great for Sacramento. He's never truly had a bad season in the NBA, and he's just got better as time goes on, whether that is production-wise or whether it's just his impact on the team on winning basketball. They bring in DeMar DeRozan, for example. That is not a rebuild move. That is a move that says, hey, we like what we have with our roster right now. We like what we have with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. And we want to take that to the next level. We want to be an even better team. We were the 3 seed 2 years ago. Didn't have as good a season last year. And we want to move on from that. And we want to get even better because we trust in our guys. And we trust in De'Aaron Fox and his ability that he has shown to continually progress as a player, continually impact the game more and more, and become an overall better player. That is what De'Aaron Fox has done. And the floor wasn't even that low. He's always been a pretty good NBA player. But year by year, it seems he's just consistently leveled up and become even better. And that's really impressive in a league of stagnation, in a league of plateauing, especially at the point guard position. They might just kind of settle into a spot as a guy that doesn't do much on defense, a guy that might decline a little in the playoffs, a guy that might be a little bit inefficient. So often, so many point guards in the modern NBA, they just fall into that trap and become a decent NBA point guard, and they just get stuck at that, and they can't break through to the next level and become properly efficient. And in a guy like De'Aaron Fox's case, right, that efficiency might be from the three-point line. But this is another example. He has shown that he has what it takes to improve. He has the desire, the will, the drive to improve because he has become a better three-point shooter. And so in a league where point guards seem to be complacent sometimes, because at the end of the day, I think the point guard pool is perhaps the most talent pool in the entire NBA, because you've got even low-end starters that are pretty good, that are pretty solid, and can contribute a lot for your team, make a lot of difference just having the right point guard. But the great ones, the ones that set them apart, are the ones that do consistently improve, that continually advance their game, become better in areas that they might be lacking previously, and overall just contribute to winning basketball. And that is what De'Aaron Fox has done. And the 60-point game, the 49-point game, those just highlight that. They highlight his consistency and his improvement and growth, commitment to all that, to becoming a better player, especially for the Sacramento Kings, this organization. Let's not forget, a couple years ago, they decided that Tyrese Haliburton and De'Aaron Fox, they wouldn't fit next to each other necessarily. Even though Tyrese had a good rookie season, they went and shipped him off to Indiana. And they put their trust in De'Aaron Fox, and he has not let them down. These past games are just a recent example of that, but in general, he has been a consistently steady player who has gotten better each and every year, something that you don't see that often in the NBA anymore, especially at the point guard position. They can often be complacent and plateau, but De'Aaron Fox has not been that. And as a result right now, all eyes are on De'Aaron Fox for his hard work, his improvement, his dedication to the game, and of course his recent jaw-dropping performances. Exited the Los Angeles Clippers. There was one man on the team who was said to be addition by subtraction, and that is Norman Powell. And that by Paul George leaving the team, that would open up opportunities for other guys to step up and show out and contribute to the team in ways they had not previously been able to do and take their game to higher levels. And that is what Norman Powell has done this NBA season. He has been addition by subtraction for the Los Angeles Clippers. He's averaging 23.6 points a night on 33.9 minutes a game. Both of those are career highs. He is playing more than he ever has, and he is scoring more than he ever has. The Clippers themselves are 6-7, but that is with Kawhi Leonard not being healthy to start the year. That is with James Harden being the number one option. And he's not a bad number one option for sure, but he is not the same player that he once was. So the magnitude of Harden being your first option isn't as great as it might have been back in the Houston days. And in the Western Conference, 6-7 isn't even all too bad, because a couple wins and a couple losses can really determine teams' record and their outcome come playoff time. You know, you might float around 500 a lot of the West teams just because your schedule is so hard, because the Western Conference is so loaded with talent. And so you go on a little winning streak there, and all of a sudden you're one of the higher seeds in the West. So I don't think the record for the Clippers right now is too much of a sign to worry, especially with Kawhi not being healthy. And one person who has stepped up with Kawhi being out, with Paul George being gone, has been Norman Powell. He has been great for them in every sense of the word. And I don't know that they would be 6-7 if they didn't have Norman Powell. I think his impact has been that valuable. It's been really, really notable. And this is a guy who consistently has been one of the best best bench scorers in the entire league for years on years now. But he has taken his game to another level with the loss of Paul George. And he needed to, right? This team would not be 6-7 without his efforts, especially with Kawhi being out. And he has absolutely lived up to those efforts and put in his all. And much like I was talking about De'Aaron Fox earlier, he is committed to his improvement and become the best form of himself that we've ever seen. Now, Norman Powell has always been a talented scorer, no doubt, but we have not seen it on this high of a level ever. A lot of that is opportunity, but at the same time, yes, you can get the green light to take shots, but you've also got to be able to hit them. And De'Aaron Fox is not De'Aaron Fox. Norman Powell has absolutely gone out and not just gotten the opportunity to take these shots, not just have the confidence to take these shots, but he has absolutely been hitting them and answered the call in every sense of the word for the Clippers, and truly become addition by subtraction with the loss of Paul George. It's really time that we start to have discussions about Norman Powell. He's one of the better microwave scorers in this league, and he's been able to do it on a consistent level this season. Not just being a microwave bench spark plug, but being a steady scorer who's going to be able to just go in and get you buckets on 34 minutes a night. This is the best version that we've ever seen of Norman Powell, and he has not just got the opportunity, he has taken it and swung it out of the Celtics. In all three major box score categories, those being points, rebounds, and assists, he is having his best season yet as an NBA pro. And this was after a year where there was a lot of push for Jason Tatum MVP, especially from the media, for him to be the MVP. And overall, that kind of flamed out. And in the playoffs especially, Jason Tatum kind of was looked at as less of the guy, as Jaylen Brown would go on to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP and lastly, Finals MVP. And going into this season, I was of the opinion that Jason Tatum was going to level up his game even more, and that he was going to play with a chip on his shoulder to prove that he is the best guy, the guy on the Celtics team, the one to go to in all situations, the true MVP, the true first option, the true leader of the Celtics team. Because with Jason Tatum, his superstar discussions are always kind of awkward because you can tell that he has all the talent, all the tools to be an elite player in this league. But there's always just something taken away from his game, something that takes him away from true elite conversations, from superstar conversations. Whether that's just, his impact on the game, the fact that the Celtics have so many great players, that how much would they truly miss Jason Tatum? That is conversations that were being had. And part of it is also just NBA Twitter and not being a fan of an individual player and singling him out whenever he has a bad performance. But Jason Tatum in his own right, he has been inconsistent in the playoffs. He might have 51 game and not do anything the next. He might score largely nothing in the first three quarters of a playoff game and then score like 19 in the fourth. And those are two examples that we have seen. So part of the criticism on Tatum does fall back on him ultimately, but he's kind of pushing back on that criticism now, and I think he has taken it to heart, and not in a way where it affects his confidence necessarily, at least negatively, like you might see with a guy like Ben Simmons, who following getting criticized, getting flamed by the NBA community for his lack of performance in the Sixers playoff exits, Ben Simmons would go on to continue to decline and not be the player that he once was. But Jason Tatum, he has taken that and put a chip on his shoulder to prove himself. And winning one championship isn't enough, especially when he's not the Finals MVP. He wants to go out there and prove himself and prove that he is the guy on the Celtics team. And obviously, the three major box score categories are not the full game. And you can impact the game in a lot of other facets on the defensive end, especially the defense. That's something that is so eye test oriented. And speaking of the eye test, right, that is something that is so important in terms of how a player can really be perceived by people who are actually watching the games. Because you can put up good numbers, but if it doesn't really look like you're out there putting in the effort and doing all that you can to be an impactful player and win for your team, those stats look a little bit more empty. But Jason Tatum this season, not only does he have the tools and the talent that we've seen in years past to score for himself and just do all the things, he is also kind of committed a little bit to doing the little things. Because Jason Tatum, as talented as he is, and as great a defensive player, for example, as he can be, when you're the first option on that Celtics team that lives and dies by the three, kind of has a fast-paced offense for that matter, you can kind of work off of your defensive workload and just hone in on the offensive end. We see it all the time with first options like Luka Doncic, for example, that they might take a step back on defense just because they're so crucial to that offense. But Jason Tatum, among top players in the league, he is one of the more talented two-way players. In that, while he's not the best defender on the Celtics team, he can still hold his own, absolutely. And maybe Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Drew Holiday, those are the go-to guys on the defensive end, the main point of attack guys. But that's okay because those three guys are great to elite defenders in their own right, especially Derek White and Drew Holiday. Those are two elite perimeter defenders. So as a result, Jason Tatum, for a star, he doesn't need to hone in as much on the defensive end, but he still does. Among top players that are offensive oriented, he is still one of the better defenders out of that group. And he doesn't even need to be because he's got so many talented defenders on that roster, but he still commits to being a solid defender. And I think that just takes his game to another level in terms of how he impacts it. Because even if he's having a bad offensive game, he can still be a net positive NBA player for what he does to you on the defensive end and all the little things that we don't really see from stars too often. They can get complacent, they can get lazy, and we see some of that from Tatum at times. But this season, it feels like he's really had a chip on his shoulder and committed to being the best guy possible for the Celtics so that he can definitively be the guy on that Boston Celtics team and be the MVP on that team, the guy to look to when they need him most, whether it's on the defensive end or the offensive end. Jason Tatum has a chip on his shoulder, and it's really working out for the Celtics so far this season. The Eastern Conference in itself doesn't look too strong, but the Celtics are a juggernaut of it along with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that is due in large part due to Jason Tatum's play, impacting the game in every facet. When there would be excuses realistically if he didn't play too good a defense, there would be criticism for sure, especially a guy like Jason Tatum. He can face a lot of criticism. At times it's deserved, at times it's not. But overall, I think the media would be able to undermine if he wasn't being a good defender at least and not really doing the little things, just because he is required to carry that offensive load. But Jason Tatum has really had a chip on his shoulder and committed himself to being a winning basketball player, an impactful player in all facets of the game for the Celtics team, and is doing wonders. And Jason Tatum is having the best season of his NBA career. And that's coming after winning a championship, after being top 5 in MVP discussions. He has become an even better player, a more impactful player, and it's all due to that chip on his shoulder. He is responding to the criticism and facing with confidence. And that is all for today's episode of State of the Association. Thank you for listening. It's been fun. It's been real, but it ain't been real fun. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and this was one of my favorite full-time episodes. Typically, if you look at my recommendations and favorites list, that is all individual segments, and often those don't even come from one singular podcast. They are a segment from a bonus episode, because often with this podcast, when I have a full-length episode and multiple talking points, it can kind of just go off track. Maybe I'm talking too fast, or maybe I'm just not focused in fully on my topic. I can come out with some not the best takes. I can come out with less nuanced takes, but I think today was a lot better and probably the best full episode I have done. And we're probably going to have 2 of those make the recommendations and favorites list for just people to go check out as some of the best portions I have done, some of the best work I've done on this channel, on this podcast. And overall, we're just trying to get better each and every time, and I think this was a very good step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, we still just got to continually improve and get better each and every time. But right now, thank you for listening. This is maybe the best full-length episode I've done. It has been State of the Association. I am your host, Nash Roberts. And if you enjoyed, I would appreciate you tuning in for more, because we're trying to get better each every time, and this was a step in the right direction, and this feels like a true breaking point where we're going to just become even better. Thank you.